Hello and welcome to a new series of WiSP World Canada, the magazine show that takes a closer look at Canadian women's sports and the issues. I'm Maria Sampson, and today I'm actually recording out of Victoria, British Columbia, with my brand new co-host. So if you're wondering where Sarah Gross went, she is enthralled with her backstrokes and boobs podcasts and various other podcasts. And so we found another Victoria resident, also a triathlete, because I just can't get enough of people who run, swim, and bike for a living. So Suzanne Flanagan is here today with me. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, how are you? Nice to be here, Maria.
Awesome. And you have a little bit of a nickname, don't you?
Yes, I do. My nickname's Suze, and that comes from coaching, and when athletes have no breath left and they can only use one syllable, they use Suze. It's about all that comes out.
That, if I was one of your athletes, that is definitely what I would be calling you, as somebody who's not very good in the long endurance sports. So Suze is here with us today, and you are in Victoria, correct?
Yes, I am. I've been here for quite a while, probably about 20 years now.
Awesome. And so tell us a little bit about your sporting background.
Well, I've been an athlete my whole life. Growing up in a large family, I think it was one of my mother's strategies to keep us all so busy we wouldn't get in trouble. I swam competitively as a child for many years and then moved into competitive gymnastics and triathlon. I rode horses. I love barrel racing and trick riding because I could be upside down and I can go really fast. I even played golf for a couple of summers. Got a scholarship, academic and athletic scholarship to the University of Lethbridge, so I ran cross country there. And then a few years later, I did my first triathlon, a half Ironman on a dare from a friend of mine, and I fell in love with it. And I've been doing triathlon now for 21 years, and I never looked back.
I have to admit, there is nothing about triathlon that sounds appealing to me. 3 things which I am not very good at. And so how does one stay motivated for the entire length of time? Do you just get into a trance in your swim, in your run, in your bike? Like, how does that work?
I've asked myself that question many, many times over the years because with running, with swimming, with gymnastics. And when I was doing gymnastics, I was doing 6 hours a day after school. There's just something about this sport that involves a lot of problem solving and a lot of shifting and changing. And so moving from one sport to another, one sport with activities in it rather than 3 separate sports linked together. I just never get bored. And so, Maria, you've retired from the national rugby team. So tell us a little bit about your coaching, because you've moved into coaching quite significantly now.
Yeah, so I had a kind of an organic movement into coaching. I'd been helping guest coach the men's Mount Royal rugby team, and my husband and I got the opportunity this spring to travel to Victoria again, which seems to be my favorite destination at this time of year, to coach them in the National Sevens tournament. So it's been a nice transition, but for the summer, I think I'm calling it the summer of the Sampsons, because I get to do whatever I want, supporting Mozak in his endeavors on the national team. So that's one piece. And then being in Victoria today, I'm meeting with the National Senior Women's Sevens and 15s rugby team as part of my new position, which I'll be joining the Rugby Canada board in a week. And so just to try to get a feel of, the membership that I'll be representing, to making sure we're connected as I, going into the board meetings and working that way. And speaking of rugby, for anybody who wants to know more about rugby and the lead up to the Women's Rugby World Cup in 2017, there is a show, myself and Kim Donaldson. It's called Ruck On, and it airs every month. And we've been covering the various tournaments leading up to the World Cup, the teams, who to watch for, and the next few months are going to be incredibly busy as teams are, winding down what squad they're going to be taking to the World Cup, and there's a lot of emphasis on the next few games. So you can catch that at wisports.com. Next, we're going to be talking about a little bit of news, and then we are lucky to have Canadian bobsled pilot Alysia Rissling, one of my very good friends. She's going to be on the show today. But first, the news that we are going to be talking about, and what's more Canadian than everybody's favorite ice sport, curling.
Yes, very exciting. The women's curling team is undefeated at the World Curling Championships, and they are going right into the final. And that's going to be pretty exciting. That final airs on Sunday.
Yeah, and so that's a CPT World Women's Curling Championships, and it's in Beijing, which is, kind of a precursor. There's some Olympic qualification that's going to be happening there. And so with Canada going through, as you mentioned, perfect 11-0 record in a 12-team round robin, you can catch the finals this weekend, www.worldcurling.org, and just search for the World Women's Curling Championship, and you'll be able to find the results there. For the Olympic Games, through this competition, there has been some qualification that has occurred. That's Canada, Great Britain that qualified as Scotland, Japan, Korea, Russia, Sweden, Switzerland, and the USA have all qualified for the 2018 Olympics. And I can't believe we're already talking about another Olympics. It feels like Rio was just yesterday. If you want to know more about curling, there is an athlete profile series on Jamie Sinclair that we feature on our WiSPorts.com website. Jamie is Canadian, but she actually represents the U.S. So an interesting thing there throughout the Olympics, and as different individuals represent different countries. Do you have any affiliation with other countries? Would you be able to compete wearing something other than the maple leaf?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I have a bit of Scottish background. So if I were to apply for Scottish citizenship, I might be able to represent there. But I haven't done that so far. I'm pretty happy with the maple leaf, frankly.
Yeah, so am I. I have some far back Ukrainian heritage, and my father competed for Poland in rowing. So I think when I look back, I think I could have applied to be a Polish citizen, or at least get my Polish passport at some point, but never went that path. Very, very, very happy wearing the maple leaf, and my rugby career might have been a little bit different had I been representing Poland.
Yep.
More winter sports, slopestyle, snowboard. It still shocks me. It still seems like a relatively new sport when we're talking about snowboarding. I mean, I know it's been around for a bit of time. Not as long as I've been alive, but Canadian Laurie Blanc, she the slopestyle winner in Sierra Nevada.
And it is pretty amazing. Like you say, it doesn't seem like some of these sports have been around a very long time, but in fact they have been, and lots of grassroots activity long before they came into the mainstream. And this is really exciting for her. She's to come onto the national scene like this, and hope to see more really good efforts from her.
Yeah, and she actually changed her run at the last minute. She talked about it, various switch backside 180s, front side 540s, all these things that I will never be able to do. But she was trying to, her switch backside 540 wasn't going well in practice. And so she just decided to change it up, and it ended up working in her favor. She'd much rather have a perfect run than try to do something that just wasn't feeling right on the day. So good for her for thinking on the fly on something so intense and, really truly on the world scene, making that split-second decision.
Well, I did that as a gymnast. I would have a routine, and if I wasn't doing something well, or I wasn't hitting something at a certain point, I would make that decision as well, or my coach would do that. You may even do that on the rugby field at a point where you think you're doing a certain kind of play and then want to shift. I don't know. You might want to talk a little bit about that for a couple of minutes in terms of, what kind of decisions are you making? They're similar. You're making a decision in advance of the play because of the confidence that it takes to do whatever would result in a successful play.
Yeah, and it's funny, your take on that, because when I view it as a team sport in terms of strategy, changing your strategy, but this idea of a routine, a single person's routine, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it, but the way you've explained it is perfectly. Also, talking about routines, half-pipe skiing, Canadian Casey Sharp wins gold at the World Cup.
Mm-hmm. And so she joined the Canadian National Halfpipe team in 2014. She comes from a family of winter sports athletes. She's got two brothers, also successful in the sport. She won her first World Cup career title in 2015 in France, and then again just recently. So she's really up and coming.
And speaking of up and comers, next up, Alysia Rissling. We have her on the show. You can find out all about my friend Riz at www.rislingbobsleigh.com. And she has a great little video about her journey there as well. So, Alysia, are you with us?
Hi, Maria.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm still a little jet-lagged, but I'm doing well.
So, hi, Alysia.
Hi, how are you?
So,
I'm
jet lag,
good.
where are you coming back from? I mean, we know, but tell everyone.
I just got back from Pyeongchang, South Korea.
And that was the Olympic test event at that track, and something huge happened. You got bronze.
I won my first World Cup medal. Yeah,
not bad on an Olympic track either, right? Coming up in a year.
Yeah, if anything, it's a huge confidence booster going into next year. That knowing that I can have some success on this track.
So you've been on the show before. We know about your basketball history at the university, you're from Edmonton. We know about your basketball history. Remind us where you went again.
I went to U of A, University of Alberta, and I played for the Pandas for 5 years.
Right, and then basically you switched sports and went from a team sport to. Would you qualify bobsled as an individual quasi sport?
You know what? No. At the end of the day, it's still a team sport. And I think it's a team sport that's built up of a lot of individual athletes. But it takes two people to push the sled, and you can't have one without the other. So it's a team sport.
And that team can sometimes change over the course of the year. So tell us a little bit about your past season and, your changes in brakeman or your kind of your travel over the last, 4 or 5 months?
It's been almost 6 months, actually. Longest season ever. So bobsleigh is interesting because, yes, at any given point, you can change up who your team is. So as much as I compete with 3 Canadian sleds and we're direct competitors of each other, oftentimes we flip-flop brakemen. And so it makes for an interesting dynamic because 1 week you could be competitors with one of the brakemen, and then the next week you got to grind together and be each other's teammate. So it's a weird kind of dynamic, and you always have to make sure that you are treating everyone with respect, even when they are your competitors, because you never know when they're going to end up in the back of your sled. This year I raced on the World Cup circuit. I did 6 of the 8 races, and I raced with 3 different brakemen in those World Cup races.
And so, Alyssa, how does that? How do you deal with that then? Psychologically, it might sound like I'm asking you to sort of look through your history to figure that one out. But how do you deal with that then in terms of consistency of understanding of how your brakeman works and your brakeman understanding how you work, so that you develop that really in sync ability to function almost intuitively with each other?
Yeah. You know what? I contribute a lot of my skills that I'm able to get along with the girls under pretty much any circumstances, to being a leader and being captain when I played basketball. So when you're playing on a basketball team and you're trying to unite a team of 12 players, and everyone knows in women's sports, girls' personalities sometimes clash, especially when you're in a bigger team, and not everyone's going to get along all the time. And even within a team sport where you're still fighting for one goal, there's people who are trying to fight for starting positions and try to fight for playing time and that sort of deal. So you've always have to overcome these adversity, even within team sports. And so bobsleigh is no different. So in bobsleigh, not only are you fighting for a spot on the team as a brakeman, you're always fighting to be the race brakeman. You're also trying to fight to be, maybe on the Canada 1 sled or the Canada 2 sled. So as a pilot and as a person who understands who I need to have these relationships, because, sometimes I'm going to be racing with the 3rd fastest brakeman and sometimes I'm going to be racing with the 1st. You never know. And it's just really important to me that I maintain these relationships regardless of whether or not I'm competing against or with that brakeman. And it's something that I think makes the season go by much more smoothly, because no matter what, it doesn't matter who you're competing with or against, you still have to travel with these people. You still have to be with them breakfast, lunch, dinner, day in, day out, small quarters in the middle of a small town Europe when there's nothing else going on. And if you start to let little things get to each other and start to invade what the relationship, then it can make for a really long, frustrating season. So for us, I think the best thing that we could do is at the beginning of the year, we have very open and honest conversations about our expectations with each other and what we expect. Like for instance, in my personality, I say when I'm frustrated and I get down, I just need some space. Just let me walk around for a little bit, and the girls gave me respect that. And then they know, because I'll be right back in the group. Just give me a couple hours to myself to get it sorted. And then there's other girls who don't need that. They need the opposite. They need you to shower them with love. So it was just, I think it starts early, and you have to work on these relationships day in and day out. It's not something that just easy and flows. It's a constant work. But we do a pretty good job of handling it, I think, within the team.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
yes. Go ahead.
Other than talked about having different brakemen throughout the year, you have a new sled, and you made a pretty big self-investment this year. 6 figures that I think you got a lot of help with in terms of getting a new sled to be able to compete competitively on the World Cup circuit. And so how did you go about getting the sled, making the decision to get the sled, and how much of a factor do you think that was for you this year?
I think the factor was everything for me this year. I said it the day I got the sled. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is going to turn out to be the best decision I ever made, and so far it's proven to be true. So in the summer last year, the Team Canada announced that they were getting new sleds, but they didn't have enough in the budget to get one for everyone. And because there's multiple other reasons I could go around in circles for this, Dave, they ended up giving it to 2 men instead of 1 man and 1 woman. And they broke this to me on August 14th, 2016. The season starts pretty much October 1st. So we're at the end of August, and I found out that I'm getting the same sled that I had the year before, which in 2011 was an absolutely fantastic sled. But unfortunately, the technology has just come so far since then that in bobsleigh, you can't really get anywhere without having competitive equipment. And I went to our head performance director and said, well, okay, so I'm not getting a sled this year. Is there a chance I could get one for next year for the Olympic Games year? And his response was, I have no idea. We'll see. So at that point, I was extraordinarily upset because I was like, I just really felt like I wasn't being given the tools to be successful, because no one felt that I had the ability to be successful or as successful as I thought that I could be. So on August 14th, I was told I was not getting a sled. The next day, I kind of was humming and hawing, and I was like, you know what? I think I have to get my own sled. And by September 5th, I had put the deposit down and bought a sled.
Smokes.
That's pretty courageous. And I have a question for you. But before I ask it, it's that courage that says that you believed in yourself in some way. And I think as women and oftentimes little girls, we struggle with that in terms of really believing in ourselves enough to make those investments. It's maybe not fair or not okay that we have to, especially for the Mavericks, the ones out front that are kind of leading the way for women to come behind with more opportunities. But to that point, I want to ask you in a broader sense, what this costs you in terms of the male-female dynamic. You're a female in a sport that has relatively few females in it. You have one event at the Olympics. The second one, you can compete as women against men in a neutral gender, but you still don't have that second sport in the Olympics. The way things are versus the way things can be. Can you talk just a little bit about, what's the cost to you in terms of leading the way for what will probably be many women coming behind you in this sport?
I hope there's many women coming around in this sport. I think that's the biggest problem we're struggling with right now is it is a dying sport, and the chicken and the egg. It's like we can't get more girls in the sport because it's really hard to attract an excessive amount of women to come play when they're fighting for one position, that one spot as a brakeman or the one spot as a pilot. Whereas if we had the 4-man event as an Olympic event, then they could be fighting for 4 spots instead of just one, and you're more likely to give it a try. And until we get that, but the cost to me, as much as it might have set me back in my financial future forever, but and what I thought too is that for myself, I had come too far in terms of the sacrifices and the decisions I've made to get to where I am, to not do absolutely everything in my power to give myself a chance to be on the Olympic stage for next year. So I had to do everything that I could. And what it cost for me is relatively, and I think it was the smartest decision I ever made. And in the end of the game, it doesn't cost me anything, because if I'm setting an example for girls that are coming up, I mean, I don't think it's a good example. Like, hey, you want to come in bobsleigh, and if you want to be successful, you have to spend 6 figures to get through your season. It's going to scare a lot of girls away, but it also can just prove that if you're willing to go whatever mile, then anyone can have success in this sport, or any sport for that matter.
Well, and I think maybe that's the larger point there, is that, you're making these sacrifices, you're taking these steps, and they're paying off, and that maybe that's the bigger lesson for women in terms of sport, is taking that step in the first place to believe in themselves and see things pay off down the road.
Yeah, I think that if anything, I hope that's the lesson that people learn from it.
Alysia, what's your plan for the next, till the next start of the season in October?
Well, I wish I was on vacation right now, but because I bought a sled, I had no money left to go on vacation. So I'm taking this week completely off of all activity, which is so far been extremely hard for me. But I'm making myself do it. And then I'm going to start back again on Monday. I'm not going to get full into the swing of things, but this summer for me, and this is the second part of my investment in myself, I've told myself I'm not going to work, because as much as I need to, I know the girls that are going to be vying for medal contention are not, and I need to be taking the proper steps so that my body can rest and recover on top of my training schedule. So for the next, until my first, everything's 3 weeks earlier this year. So where my season started in October last year, we're actually going to start closer to the beginning of September. Everything's kind of pushed up. So it's just going to be nose to the ground and sprint training and lifting and Pilates classes and yoga classes and proper physio appointments and that sort of deal. I'm just going to do everything to get my body ready, so I can feel as good as I did when I was standing on the block in Pyeongchang this year, but I can do it in February with all the other pressures that are added to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you talk about that investment in yourself, and then everything that you need to do over the course of your quote-unquote off season, which is probably one of your most important seasons going into the Olympic year. It's incredible to see one of my good friends be so successful. And I know when I saw kind of the results of that Olympic test event, like Mozak, my husband and I, we lost it because we were so proud and have seen you grow so much over the last few years. So it's been incredible. And, from personal experience, I can tell you that self-investment is totally worth it and it will pay dividends. And the one thing that you can take from now is building up for that, for a year's time in the Olympics, and you have a whole bunch of support, and literally all of Canada will be behind you.
Mm-hmm. Wearing that maple leaf.
Thanks, guys.
Alysia, thank you so much for being on the show today. We can't wait to watch your journey. As you said, you start up 3 weeks early in September 2017, and we'll hopefully be catching up with you throughout your season next year as well.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
We wish you the very best.
Have a good rest of the week completely off.
Thanks.
All right. See ya.
All right.
Take care.
Guys. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bobsled is such a foreign sport. I mean, I've been around so many bobsledders, training with them, training alongside Alysia for many years, but there's still this idea of, going so fast down this bajillion-dollar track, multiple tracks all around the world, and people really do fall in love with the sport. Speaking with Alysia, Kaylee Humphreys and the various brakemen, they have this like desire to compete, in a ice race car, for lack of a better word, with less steering.
Well, it is really quite amazing. We kind of pick our sport, or maybe our sport picks us, and there's just something about it that keeps us coming back. And obviously for Alysia and for our Canadian national team, there's something that keeps drawing them back. And maybe it's just that, the farther you get into it, the more you realize that, man, I've got more. I have more potential. And how do I get that out of myself? And what do I do? And is it it's a risk that it might not pay off, but there's a real upside to that in terms of beginning to understand what we're capable of. And you said it about triathlon. Not sure you kind of could see yourself doing all those. I like speed, but I can't see myself bulleting down one of those tracks. And but that's something she loves, and she's world class at it, and more power to her.
Absolutely. And we'll be talking more about women's sports, and you can find more on women's sports if you visit wisports.com. There's blogs, videos, articles, and more than 600 podcast episodes covering all sports for women around the world, including my very own show, Ruck On, the rugby show. And you can join in the conversation following us on social media channels at WiSports, or drop us a line if you have comments, questions, suggestions to info@wisports.com. I hear that Sarah and Kelly will be discussing another important topic for women on next week's Locker Room Talk podcast, the development of sports bras. And there'll even be a chance to win a sports bra too.
And one of my favorite shows, of course, on WiSP is WiSP Iron Women, where Sarah and Alysia, they talk all things triathlon. And this week they're going to be talking to one of the sports favorites, Haley Chura. I'm very much looking forward to listening to that. I listen to all of these different kinds of podcasts as I'm on my bike, on my trainer, out for a run. Take the time, if you'd like, to go to the iTunes store, just look for WiSP Sports Radio, and you can download any one of these podcasts.
And thank you, Suze, and thanks, Alysia, for joining us on the show today. We'll be back next month with more women's sports news. Until then, thanks for listening.
Bye for now.